Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today we're going to be discussing some recent news out of the IMF and how it dovetails with a request we had from one of our viewers, which is Victor Pod. So thank you for the suggestion. We're going to talk today a little bit about the idea of coming global tax, if it is going to come at all. And we're going to talk about how it might apply to tax rates in places, in particular in UAE, where I happen to be at the moment. So we're going to dive into that, and I'm going to try and cover it for you. So please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We really appreciate you subscribing. It's trying to grow the channel, etc. So yeah, happy to be here with you. If you'd like help at all with the subjects of international tax, international living, getting the best structure figured out for you, or implementing it, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. There's a link in the description below, or check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. Send us a message through there. Okay, so there was a client had sent me something a few days ago commenting, it's funny that these unelected bureaucrats want to tell us, what they think is a great idea. And it was a line where the chief economist from the IMF came out saying that they were in full support of a global minimum tax. And they were talking about the importance of global cooperation to fight tax competition. And this is just a ridiculous concept. I mean, let's just think about here for a minute. I've talked about this before, but and I'm going to explain a little bit in a second the concept, but what's the concern? The concern is they're saying, well, some country is lowering their tax rate, so people are going there, so, we don't like that, so we're going to have to go and get everybody to cooperate to say that all of the tax rates will be high so we don't lose people. Now, why on earth is a lack of competition in options a good thing? I think it's a terrible thing, right? Having competition is the point. The point is that you have competition because of the fact that it forces countries to optimize. And there's going to be a certain point where, hey, listen, they're going to have to make trade-offs. They can't just give everything away for free. If you're in some place like I'm in UAE right now, here's the reality. They make things work with no income tax. Income tax is zero personal, zero corporate. They have some VAT. They do other things in order to make it work for them, and they deliver pretty great quality of life, all things considered. You can go to Singapore and you can look at what they deliver. Pretty low corporate tax, pretty low personal tax, reasonable GST. You know what? It's perhaps some of the highest quality of life in the world. And, so why would I go to France and pay 3 times as much tax? What am I getting for it, So when countries like the US and Canada and Australia and France and Spain and Italy and Germany and Netherlands start coming and complaining about this kind of stuff, I think that's just ridiculous. Like, clean up your backyard, manage your country better. Then we won't have any problems. Very simple. So anyway, the question though comes down to, well, what is this all about? Is it likely to come in, and how is it likely to affect countries like UAE? So here's the good news for you. At the moment, what they're discussing is a global minimum tax on large companies, large multinationals. And depending on the proposal, you're talking about like 750 million a year plus. So, the likelihood that many of our viewers are affected by this is probably fairly low. Now, I don't think that excuses it. I don't think that means we should bring it in, because the reality is that that's how they'll start it, right? It'll start off at 750 million, then it'll be 50 million, and inflation will put a business that used to be below that threshold above that threshold, and then they'll say, hang on, why don't we just have this for everybody? And becomes a disaster, right? So I think it's a generally really bad trend. It's a bad thing to kind of try and eliminate that competition. I think countries should be allowed to compete by having their own ways of doing things. And if you are a company in, say, the US, and you want to tax your US companies that way, all right, I don't think it's smart. I've talked about this recently. But on the other hand, at least you can go somewhere else. However, that being said, this is a pretty aggressive, forward-pushing proposal. Janet Yellen from the US is really pushing for it and pushing for cooperation with various countries. A lot of the countries in Europe have said that they're on board with this. I think you're generally going to get a bunch of consensus. So I think the chances that you come up with a global minimum tax on corporations probably is relatively high. I think it makes it more important than ever to find places that are favorable for individual tax, not just corporate tax. Okay, so that's something. Is this likely to affect UAE? So my general opinion is that at the moment at least, I don't think you're going to see taxes brought in to UAE, income taxes. I think it's entirely possible that you will see VAT rise by 5 or 10%. I kind of look at Saudi Arabia, which raised their VAT from 5% to 15% as a bit of a model of this. I think that they may try and raise tax revenue in some other ways, like, possibly they have quite a few tourism taxes and things like this, so maybe that will happen over time. But I think it's pretty unlikely that they introduce corporate tax or personal tax, in particular personal tax. And the reason for this is quite simple. The people who run UAE are really smart, okay? They know what they're doing. They understand what works for them, they understand their niche, and they serve a really fantastic niche in the world right now, because it's kind of like the new Monaco, right? It's the one place in the world you can go where you can get kind of world-class cities while having zero tax. Where else can you go for that, right? And that's drawing a lot of people. It's becoming increasingly popular, and they're working on cultivating that more and more. If they change that, if they were to say, hey, listen, we're going to start doing a 10% tax like Qatar has on their companies, or a 12.5% tax like Ireland has, it's not so attractive to be in UAE anymore. And I think they know that. And as a result, they know, like, when they draw these people in here, there's a whole halo of services that get provided. There's a whole halo of different goods and output that come from having people who are going to spend money in the economy, who are going to live there, who are going to buy houses, who are going to buy goods, who are going to buy vehicles, who are going to pay for services, etc. And that is enough to uplift the entire system. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But my general opinion, I'm not concerned about UAE creating income tax anytime in the near future. I think it's likely that they will raise VAT sometime in the next few years. I'm not too concerned about that. I think, on a marginal basis, the percentage of your income that goes towards consumption is a lot lower than your relative income, and so the impact that it has is a lot less. So anyway, hope that helps. That's kind of my perspective on it as it stands right now. We could, I could be mistaken. My crystal ball is broken as usual, but let me know what you guys think. Do you think that A, we're going to see a global minimum corporate tax? If so, do you have any ideas what that might look like? Number two, do you think UAE is likely to introduce income tax anytime in the next, say, 5 years? We'd love to hear from you. Again, if you want some help, please reach out to me. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Make sure you stay up to date on all of our future videos. Give it a like if you like it, and we really appreciate your support. I'm going to see you guys on the next video.